Hey, it's Colin Smith here from photoshopCAFE.com, and welcome to my third or fourth edition of setting up the DJI Ronins. So today we're going to be doing the setup tutorial on the DJI RS4 PRO, and we're going to be doing this combo. So this is going to include setting up the gimbal, getting the camera on there, balancing it. Then we're going to be looking at attaching the Bluetooth. We're going to be attaching the cable to control it. Then we're going to be setting up the, set up the RavenEye. We're going to be looking at the app. We're going to be looking at the Focus Pro, everything that comes in that bundle. We're basically going to be covering everything except for the LiDAR because I don't have the LiDAR with this bundle. And this video is not sponsored by DJI. They did not give me any money. They didn't give me a gimbal. This is completely independent. Now, I do want to thank B&H Photo, though, for loaning me this RS4 Pro so that I can set it up. But once again, I send it back to them when I'm done. I'm not keeping it. And this is not a review. This is a tutorial. So we're going to be looking at the complete setup. So let's start with the tripod, and then we're going to grab the battery grip. It doesn't matter if you're using this battery grip or the high capacity one. The setup is exactly the same. You can check the battery just by tapping this button. And if you need to charge it, just open this port here, attach it to USB-C. Now you can charge this either separate, or you can have the whole gimbal set up and you can plug it in and charge it that way as well. So the first thing we want to do right now is let's build a solid base that we can build everything off. So let's take the battery grip and we're going to attach it here to the tripod and then give it a little quarter turn, make sure it's nice and tight. Now, when you do this, make sure that these things are, good and firm, but don't overdo it. Don't swing on it where you're going to be stripping the threads. So don't pull it as hard as you can. Just make sure it's nice and secure. All right, so we want to mount the RS4 Pro onto the battery. So if you look, you're going to see there's a slot which fits in there, and then there's a pin. Try to avoid touching any of these pins with your hands, because prolonged touching and getting, the oils from your fingers on there, eventually the connection is not going to be good and you're going to have issues. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, let's attach it. So we just put it down and we push it into position, and then we're going to lock it. So let's just pull that down, nice and firm, and nothing should move. Excellent. So right now we have the gimbal set up in travel mode where everything is nice and compact. So now I want to open it up so we can mount the camera and attach everything to it. You'll see that there's 3 locks on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlock the first one first, pull that up, and then lock it into position. So it's facing like that. And this is our roll motor. Then we're going to take our tilt motor, let's unlock it, just get it where it's nice and flat, and then just lock it back into position. By the way, there's 3 motors and each of these have a lock. We have the first one is the pan motor. This is the lock at the bottom. So this pans, think of a panorama moving side to side. This is our roll motor. So rolling side to side. Think of an airplane barrel roll or something, how something would roll. And then we've got our tilt motor. So think you've got glasses on, say for example, and you're going to tilt your glasses up or down. That's what the tilt motor does. It goes up and down. All right, got that terminology out of the way, but we do want to know that when we go to balance it and also when we're locking and unlocking. All right, let's set everything up. You've got 2 different types of base plates here. This one here is a little bit wider and it has a hole in it. This is the one that we're going to be using for the Focus Pro. So if you're going to be using the Focus Pro, use this particular base plate. We'll attach it later, but right now we want to do a basic setup and we're just going to kind of build from there. All right, so we're going to take this one and then we're going to mount it on the bottom of the camera. The camera I'm mainly going to be using today is a Sony a7S III. We will mention a Canon in a little bit, but check compatibility on the DJI website whether or not your camera is compatible. All right, so we're going to flip this over. And now we want to attach the base plate. Now, one of the things you'll notice is new on here. We've got this little bit that slides in and it's spongy. This is great. This stops it kind of moving side to side on the camera when we lock it in. So the first thing you want to do though is take this little wing nut. There's only one in the package, and then just attach it to the base plate. Just screw it in. All right. Now put it into the bottom of the camera. Start to turn it. And when it starts to get a little bit firm, take that little piece that slides and just push it so it's nice and snug against the front part of your camera. Then take that wing nut and give it a nice tight turn. All right, so this here is nice and snug. All right, before we can put the camera on the gimbal, we need to put the base plate on. So here's our mounting plate here. You'll notice there's an arrow at the front here. This arrow is going to point towards the front of the gimbal, and this part here is where the camera goes. It's at the back. So make sure you take this lever and pull it back to unlock. Take this to the very front, push it back until you feel some resistance. Don't push it back anymore. Take this wheel, and now you can just kind of roll this wheel back a little bit. And then lock it into position. Great. Now we're ready to mount the camera. Let's point this forward so you can see. Now we can take this plate here. It's going to slide in sideways onto there. So we're going to take it from the side. Make sure that it's open. You'll see a lock-unlock position. Make sure that lever is in the unlock, which is towards the gimbal. Then we're going to take it sideways, slide it in as far as it goes. You'll hear a little click. There's a little button there, and it kind of stops it from falling off. So that's what's clicking. Now take that lever and lock it into position. All right. Now we've mounted the camera. And if you've got a heavier lens like I have here, I have a G Master 2470, you can use this little bracket that comes with it, and you can secure the lens on the front. Let me show you how that works. Just put the little plastic screw here. There's going to be one with a plastic head on it. And then just put that into the middle slot here. And then we're just going to tighten that up. So put it up where it's nice and level. Don't push it up so far that you're putting stress here on the mount on the camera. You just want to support it. You don't want to push it up. What we've got to do now, before we do anything, we now need to balance the gimbal. If we don't balance it, it's going to put stress on the motors. You're going to get vibrations, and sometimes you hear a noise like a brrrr, and it might be vibrating. That means it's not properly balanced. All right, before we balance this gimbal, set up the camera the way you want to set it up. So if you change anything like the focal length, or you add or take away filters, or add any accessories like that, you're going to have to rebalance the camera after that. So right now, I'm going to show you how to do a balance, but then later on, as we add more accessories, we will rebalance it. So to balance it, we need to balance each of the three motors. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start with our tilt motor here. We're going to unlock it. Now what you want to do is flip this up. So the camera's pointing straight up. Let me turn this around so you can see it. Probably a little more difficult for me to balance it pointing it this way, but I want you guys to see. You would actually have this pointing towards you when you're doing it. So you'll see basically. So what you're seeing now is what you'll see if you're facing it. Okay, so what we do is we loosen this off. And this is going to enable the camera to slide backwards and forwards. Now, what we want to do is have this perfectly balanced. So here's a little thing. Say I'm over here. Now it's front heavy. That's the center of gravity. Think about it. Well, somewhere in here. And there's too much weight on this side, so that means it's going to fall this way. If you want it to go that way more, then you need to shift the weight from this side to that side. So that means you need to shift that way. See what I'm doing? Now there's too much weight there. See how it falls that way? Means you need to shift the weight back the other way. All right, so here's a little tip of this. If you just try to drag it, it's really hard to move it. If you just kind of lift the camera, you can very easily just move it like that. And what I'm doing is trying to find a nice balance. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's lock that in. Tighten that screw. Great. Now, there's another thing we need to balance on the same motor. We want to balance the position of the camera. Right now, the camera's too far forward. That's why it's falling that way. If it was too far back, it would fall this way. So we need to find that balance. Undo that lever. So too much weight that way means we need to bring it back, turn the wheel. And as we turn that wheel, you'll notice it starts to come back. And we're looking for a nice balance. Sometimes when you're kind of testing it like this, it might kind of roll and go out of position. If that's the case, bring this lever in just a little bit, just till it barely starts to grip. And that will help you kind of test it without it falling off. It needs to go forward just a little bit, a bit more. And the adjustments you need for these are very, very minute. Okay, that feels pretty good. I'm going to lock that into position now. The tilt motor is now balanced. And now we're going to lock this axis. All right, now what we want to do is we want to balance it side to side. So this is our roll motor. So if I go and I unlock it, you'll see it falls that way. Too much weight that way, we need to bring it this way. So let's loosen it off. And we need to move it that way. So let's push it this way. A bit more. It's pretty close. Pretty close. All right, let's lock that into position and then just lock that axis. Now there's one more, and this is the trickiest one. We want to get the pan motor. So unlock that, and then you're going to bring this all the way down so it's directly in front of you, like this. And if I'll just put it forward so you can see it, notice it's falling forwards. Means it needs to go that way. I don't want to let go of the camera. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to unlock that. Now here's a trick. If you're like this and then you're trying to slide this, it's really hard, if not impossible to move. What you want to do is just put it down flat. I know I need to go forward. So now notice how easily it slides when it's sitting flat like this, because that weight is more distributed. When I put it like this, it's pushing the weight down and it's really hard. All right, so let's have a look and see where we're at. It's too forward. So this is how I would do it. I would just kind of bring it up and I need to bring the weight back. So I would just kind of test it like this. And by the way, once you've got this part set up, you don't really need to change that very often. Let's go back a little bit more. It's pretty close. Pretty close. Feels like it's just a little heavy on this side. So I'm just going to barely move this. Just breathe on it. There we go. And I'm going to lock that in position and just kind of test it. And when everything is properly balanced, you should be able to unlock it and you should be able to put the camera into any position and it should stay. It shouldn't be rocking backwards and forwards. It should just like sit. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to turn the gimbal on by holding down the power button. And now we're going to do the fine tune. We're going to do the auto tune. So we're going to just scroll down. We're just going to swipe until we see the gimbal motor. And before you do the calibration, double tap on here and make sure everything is centered. Then we're going to click calibrate. And it'll shake and make some noise. Make sure that it's perfectly level when you do this and stay back. Don't touch the camera or the gimbal. So it shakes and it rocks. Don't worry about that. That's perfectly normal. All right, calibration complete. So now we have a nicely calibrated camera that sits on that gimbal nicely. And yeah, it's all ready for use. Let's talk about controlling the camera with Bluetooth. We can start and stop a video recording, and we can take photos from the gimbal directly on a supported camera. Now the camera has to support Bluetooth for a start. So, you know, the Canon 5D Mark IV, it's not going to work because this doesn't have Bluetooth. But in a minute, I'll show you how to set up the cable connection, which gives you more functionality. Check the DJI website for compatibility of your camera to work with the Bluetooth. So what you want to do is you're going to turn the gimbal on, you're going to turn your camera on. All right, so if we go in here, we're going to choose the menu on the camera. And then what we want to do is go to Network, go down to Bluetooth, go to Bluetooth function, turn it on. Then you're going to go to Pairing. And now what you want to do is go down to the gimbal, and we're going to swipe down on the RS4 until you see the Bluetooth. Tap on that Bluetooth, and then you'll see Pair. When you start pairing, you'll see the camera model on there, and then it will connect. And then when it's successfully connected, if you hit the record button, it will restart recording, and then hit the record button to stop recording. We can set the M button for taking photos. Let's go back on the settings. We're going to swipe up a couple of times and then swipe across. You'll see M button. Tap on M button and you'll see an option there that says take photos. Tap on that, and now when we hit the M button, it takes a photograph. So now we're going to look at extending that functionality using a control cable. So the first thing we're going to do is turn off the camera, and then we're going to turn off the gimbal. Now, when you turn off the gimbal, you'll notice it doesn't quite close all the way. So this is not a bug, this is on purpose. And the reason is if this arm here is extended, it's going to bash into there and it's going to damage it. So it'll take it just that far. And then what we can do is we can just simply unlock it and then lock it in position if you want to put it into the travel mode. All right, let's pull this out of travel mode, set it back up again here, and we're going to grab a cable. So the cable we're going to use here is going to be a USB-C to USB-C cable, and this is for the Sony a7S III. So what we're going to do here is we are going to pop open the port. Now check your camera, maybe yours is using a multi-cable. There's different cables that come with it. If you're using something like a Canon 5D Mark IV, it's actually going to go into this USB cable. It's a double-sided one, and you're not really going to be able to find an adapter probably that goes across that whole big thing. But one of the things I learned is you just get the USB cable, I believe it's a USB micro, and that will just plug into one side of it, and that's all you need to control this camera. So we're going to plug the USB-C cable into the camera. Previously, there was 3 slots on the front of here. Now there's 2 slots, and there's one on the back. The one on the back is for the RSS or the camera control. So we're going to put it in here, but don't just pull it across because then this cable is going to start to block your screen. Tuck it under here, and then we're going to attach it right there. And now let's get this functioning. So we're just going to turn the camera on. We're going to turn on our gimbal. Now let's go to the camera settings. We want to go back to the Bluetooth. If you're using the Sony camera, you want to turn the Bluetooth off because this will not be able to connect through the cable if the Bluetooth is on. All right, now we're going to go to Transfer Remote. We're going to go to PC Remote Function. We're going to set the connection method to USB. We're going to set PC Remote on, and we should be good to go. Let's test it. Let's hit the record button. It's recording. So we're going to be able to use the dial here to control aperture, ISO, shutter speed, as well as our digital focus or our electronic focus. So let's have a look at that right now. What we got to do is we need to set it up. So we're going to scroll down. You're going to see dial function. And if we turn the dial function to say ISO, now when I'm turning this dial, it's changing the ISO here on my camera. Same thing with the aperture or shutter speed. I'm able to control that. Or we can even control, the functionality here, like this, say pan. We can control the gimbal. So as I do that, we can pan. And that can have its functionality when you want to, just do some smooth panning or something like that. But most of the time I'm going to be using it on camera controls, and we can also go here to focus. And in order to get the focus to work, what you need to do is you need to set your lens to autofocus. Then you go to your camera, and we're going to set the focus on the camera to manual focus. And now this is going to work nicely. So just remember, the lens, if it has a switch, autofocus, the camera, manual focus, and now you just set this up to focus on here. And if you have a lens that doesn't support electronic focus, no problem. We're going to be looking at the Focus Pro motor in a little bit, where we're going to be able to use this to control focus on any lens as well as zoom. So at this point, let me show you how we can switch this between vertical and horizontal shooting. So let's turn the camera off. Let's turn our gimbal off, or we can just put it to sleep by just tapping it quickly. If you tap it once, it just kind of puts it to sleep. And what we're going to do here is, if you look at this arm, at the back, there's a lever. We loosen this lever off. You want to unplug the cable before you do this, of course. And then all you do is you push this button, the release button, slide it out. Now you'll see a slot under here at the front, which matches this. All we do is we just push it in there, snap it in, and tighten that up. And now we're ready to shoot vertical. And of course, if you're using the cable, just put the cable back in again. Let's put it back. So what we do is loosen it off, hit that button, just pull it straight out. Then we're going to turn it around, slide it back in, tighten that up, tap your gimbal, and it's ready to go. All right, now I'm going to show you how to connect to the Ronin app, which is going to give us extra functionality, such as being able to control the gimbal remotely. The first time you turn on your RS4 Pro, you're going to get a little barcode and you're going to be asked to initialize. So scan that barcode and that will help you download the Ronin app, and this will be for Android or iOS. I'm using an iPhone, so we'll be doing the iOS version of it. And then once you do that, we're going to connect and then you're going to initialize. And so you can actually use the gimbal without initializing up to 5 times. After that, you're going to need to initialize your gimbal. So what this does is it actually controls it through Bluetooth. So you're going to want to turn your camera on. You're going to want to turn your gimbal on. Then you're going to want to go to your Ronin app. Now you'll see an option here to initialize the first time you do it. I don't have it because I've already initialized it. But then after you've done that, then all we need to do is just tap on connect. And we'll see on the device list, we'll see there it is. Now you've got to make sure that you have your Bluetooth turned on, otherwise that won't work. Then you're going to see your gimbal, you're going to connect to the gimbal. And if we go in here, there's some things we can do now. We can change some settings. We can wake it or sleep it. So let's wake our gimbal up. If we hit on create, we can do virtual joystick. And this virtual joystick will enable us to pan and tilt our gimbal. If we want to recenter it, just tap on recenter. We can change our settings here. Another thing we can do is force mobile, which is fun. So I'm going to hit recenter. And then we're going to enable force mobile. Now force mobile, what it does is it will mimic the movements of my phone. See how I can make the gimbal move with my phone? That's kind of a fun thing. All right, we'll turn that off and recenter. And then there's other things we can do in here, you know, such as shooting panoramas, time lapse, tracking, and changing settings. Now, if we want to extend the functionality beyond this, then this is where we're going to be using the DJI transmitter called the RavenEye. Now, they call it the DJI transmitter, but it's written on it here, it says RavenEye, and in the app it says RavenEye. So from now on, we're just going to call it the RavenEye. But what this is going to do is this is going to let us remote control the camera using Wi-Fi rather than Bluetooth. And what it's also going to let us do is get a video transmission so we can see what's on the screen on our mobile phone, and we can do tracking and different things like that. So why don't we set that up right now? And now we want to mount the RavenEye. So one of the things you'll notice is that you can mount it here onto your hot shoe, cold shoe if you want. Now you can use the RavenEye separately without the gimbal. So you might have your camera on your tripod. So you might want to see the video transmission on your phone, start, stop recording, change some settings. In this case, you would mount it up here. Otherwise, you don't want to mount it on the top because it's going to make the camera top heavy. You're going to want to mount it underneath. And in fact, if I open this up, you'll see there's a slot under there that this is going to fit. So first thing you want to do is open up these antenna, untuck them, because you're not going to be able to do that once it's mounted under here. You want the antennas pointing this way, away from the gimbal. And then if you look, you see there's a hole, and you'll see the hole gets bigger on one side, and then you're just going to push it back. you're going to see some resistance going to slide in there. It's going to be quite firm, and that's going to lock it in. You want that because you don't want it falling out. Now, once you've done this, take one of the antenna and just kind of make it flat. So they're like this. The reason we're doing that is because the signal is actually going to be hitting the flat part of the antenna. It doesn't hit the edges, it hits the flat part. And if we've got it out like this, this is going to give us a wider coverage. So if we're moving around, there's less chance of dropouts. Great. Now what we need to do is we need to connect some cables. The first thing we want is video transmission. So we need to go from the HDMI on there into the HDMI on the camera. Now, it comes with a bunch of different cables, but I happen to know that the Sony a7S III has a full-size HDMI, and then it's going to an HDMI mini. So if we look at the cables, we have a cable as a full-size to a mini. So let's attach that mini to the RavenEye, and then we're going to attach it to the camera to give us video transmission. Now there's another cable we're going to want to attach, and we can use that one that has a little right angle thing on it. USB-C to USB-C, and what this is going to do is this is going to give us control, and it's also going to give power to the RavenEye. Even though the RavenEye has a battery in there, this will actually charge it while we're using it. All right, so let's do this. Let's level that off, and then we're going to plug it into the back here. And then if we look at the front, you'll see there's two ports. We're going to use the bottom port, and that's going to work with the RavenEye. The top port we'll use with the Focus Pro later. All right, so that's now connected. Let's turn on our camera. Let's turn on our gimbal. And now you'll see those white lights going across. That doesn't mean it's on. What that means is right now it's just charging from the power. So you want to take that power button, hold that for a couple of seconds. You'll see it turns red. And then just wait a second until it turns blue. Now it's blue means everything is working correctly. So now what we need to do is we need to connect this on here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our Wi-Fi. And on our Wi-Fi network, you should see RavenEye. There it is. So we're going to tap there, and now we're going to connect to the RavenEye. Now the password is 12345678. That's the default password. There is a password written on here that you could use. And if you want to reset it, just tap the power button 6 times quickly, and that will reset that password to 12345678. Great. So now we've got the RavenEye set up, and we're going to go to the DJI Ronin app. And you'll see in the app, it's telling us to go to disable the system Bluetooth. Let's tap on there, and we'll go to our Bluetooth, and you want to turn the Bluetooth off. And the reason for that is because the Bluetooth can interfere sometimes with the Wi-Fi. So if you've just got it on Bluetooth, then the RavenEye's there. You might see on the screen where you'll see connect RavenEye camera view, tap on there, or it might just come up automatically, which is what I see here. And now I can go in, and I've got some of the settings that we had before. We can go into virtual voice joystick. We could turn that on if we want. And you'll see it in the corner, so we can move the camera around. We can control it. If you want to recenter, just tap on there. And then we've got these overlays we can use, such as zebras, where we can see, where it's too bright. All right, so we're going to triple tap. We're going to turn that around. All right, now it sees me. If we draw a box over me, we can actually set up the active track. And that means if I move, now the camera is going to follow me. We can change the speed of that. Let's make the active track faster. So now it's going to track me faster, and notice it's just tracking my face. And this can be super useful. Sometimes you might just want to mount the whole gimbal on a tripod, and then you're talking and you're kind of moving around, and it's literally like having a virtual cameraman. And double tap will bring the camera back around. And at any time you can double tap, by the way, and that will recenter the camera. All right, let's set up the Focus Pro. And the Focus Pro enables us to control the focus, the zoom, and the aperture if it has an external aperture control on there. So let's go ahead and set that up right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to unplug the camera. I'm just going to put this into a regular position here. And let's take the camera out. So what we're going to do is just loosen the adjustment, slide it, push the button, and it just pops the camera off. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this different base plate. And this is kind of nice over the previous version because before we used to have to kind of attach it to the base plate. Now we have a separate base plate for it. So let's loosen this off. Now you only get one wing nut with the kit, so you're going to have to take that off the base plate. And we're just going to pop that into the middle. And this also has this little piece that helps it, you know, so it doesn't twist later on. So we're just going to screw this onto the camera. Start to get a little grip push back on that little adapter. And then attach it. So the hole coming out should be on the left-hand side of the camera. All right, so we're just going to attach it just like we did before. Make sure we get our cables out of the way here. And we're just going to slide it on just like before, lock it into position. Now bear in mind, once we've set this up, we're going to have to rebalance the gimbal. Same as putting the RavenEye on. It will change any accessories we rebalance. So once we've got everything on, we'll balance it again. All right, so now we've got that mounted. What we want to do is take this pipe here, and we're just going to push this on the front. And, you know, have a little bit out the back, but have it mostly forward. And then we're just going to lock that into position. Great. Now we're going to take the motor. And by the way, you can use multiple motors on here. I just have one, and we're going to set it up for focus. But once again, you could set that up for zoom, and you could set it up for aperture. It's actually got the settings here. We'll talk about those in a second. What you want to have is the logo, the DJI logo pointing forward. Loosen this off and then just put it here onto the rail and just kind of slide it back a little bit. Now this here is going to turn and it's going to control this. But if we were to, you know, put that right there, it's going to struggle to get a good grip here on that grip. So it comes with this. These are like, they look like oil filter changers, and that's what we have. All right, so we're going to use this, and this is going to give us a grip, which is going to work on the wheel. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this with the texture on the outside. We're going to wrap it around the lens. We're going to be using the focus, which is at the front. So we're going to take that across. So pull it till it's nice and tight. It's not really stretchy, maybe a little bit, but you want it where it's nice and firm. That's great. Now what you want to do is center this all the way around. All right, now make sure that this bit that sticks out is over here away from this side, because this is where we're going to be controlling it with the motor. So we don't want this to hit it. So now we're going to bring this up and you're going to line it up with those teeth and turn it so it goes inside. All right. And that means that when I turn this, yeah, it should all turn together. So pull it down just a little bit, put a little pressure on it. Don't force it really hard, but just, you got some good pressure, and then just tighten that up. Great. And now if I turn this, you should see the little wheel turning there on the controller. That's perfect. That's what we want. Great. Let's plug everything back in. All right. You'll see there's one slot left there. Let's grab another USB-C. And you're going to see there's two slots in here. One of them is going to say in and one's going to say out. What we're going to do is we're going to plug this to the in, and then this is going to go to the additional port over here. Now don't drag it across there like that, because this could go in front of the lens and ruin your shot. So make sure you bring it in underneath. And then we're going to plug that into the remaining port here, making sure that the camera and the gimbal is off. You don't want to be plugging, unplugging cables when these are turned on. You don't want to hot swap these. Turn the camera on. Turn your Ronin on. And if you're going to be using your RavenEye, turn that on. Now you'll see 3 lights on here, and it says FIZ. That stands for focus, iris, which is aperture, and zoom. So if you're using it for zoom, you would set it for zoom. If you're using it for focus, we're going to do it there. And each time you tap that little button, it's going to go in between them. So we're going to go up to focus right now. That's where we're going to be using it. But we could mount a second one here for zoom if we wanted. And the way you would toggle between them is this switch here. So you would go up for zoom and you would go down for focus. Now, if you're setting this for zoom, you would also change that to the Z. But because we're only using one, it doesn't matter where we put this switch. It's going to work with focus either way. Now, you might have seen some stickers come in here. FIZ, that's what this is for. If you have multiples, you're going to be using focus. Iris zoom, just take off the sticker, put it on there so you know which one you're using it for. Pretty simple. All right, so we want to make this work with our dial so we can change our focus. Go to the gimbal. You're going to scroll down. You're going to see dial functions. Turn on dial function. And at the top, you'll see focus motor. Turn that on. And as we turn this, you'll notice we're able to change our focus. If I turn it slowly, it's going to focus slowly. If I change it big, it's going to focus big. And if you would rather do zoom than focus, just set it up on the zoom ring rather than the focus ring. Now be careful that this piece here doesn't actually hit the zoom motor. We can actually set the endpoints for that. Just scroll all the way up till you see the focus motor. Tap on there. You're going to see manual endpoints. Now it might ask you to disable any of the auto calibration that's already been done. Then at this point, you turn it to where you want the starting to position to be, then hit set. Turn it into the ending position, hit set again, click done, and now this will not go beyond what you've set. All right, let's set up briefcase mode. So you're going to see this little handle here. We're going to just kind of loosen that off. And that'll enable us to turn it around. Now you're going to see we've got these, they go on either side onto these NATO mounts. So we're going to put this, they recommend, onto the left side. So we're just going to loosen that off, slide it up, tighten it up into position, loosen off the handle, and then just kind of have that handle up a little bit like that. Now when we turn on our Ronin, and we're shooting, we can now go into briefcase mode. So now we're distributing the weight with 2 hands. This hand is carrying a lot of the weight. This one here now is just controlling it, and it enables us to shoot and get some nice stuff. I love the briefcase mode because it distributes the weight between 2 hands, makes it much easier to kind of shoot, and it gets you those nice underslung shots as well. Last accessory here is the phone holder. So this works pretty much the same. This goes into the other NATO port on the other side. Just kind of slide it in, tighten it up. And then you'll notice here that we can adjust it, and we can tighten it at any angle we want. And then we want to put our phone in. We just simply pull that out, put the phone in there. So we get our phone like that. If you want to go to horizontal, just turn it over, tilt it back. All right, so the last thing we need to do, because we've changed the weight distribution, is to rebalance the gimbal, which I've already done. And then of course run auto tune again, because you need to recalibrate it for the different weight. All right, now we have everything. We've got all the accessories on here. We're ready to go out and shoot. So hopefully you found this tutorial useful. You can use the chapter markers so you can go back and rewatch different parts as you might need them, because it's easy to forget things over time. So drop a comment and let me know if you found this tutorial useful. And by the way, if this is your first time here at the cafe, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and you won't miss any of my tutorials. And until next time, I'll see you at the cafe.